Okay, so as I mentioned, that the activity page we can see here is at a glance, and as I scroll slowly down, you'll be able to recognize a lot of the features that are in the pupils' books, as I've just mentioned. And as we go down, you can see that they're adding in complexity, but also it's still the fun and engaging way that we have from the pupils' books and the Jolly Phonics program. So we'll go into that a bit further when I go into the classrooms, but I'm showing you this now because also on this landing page, we have worksheets. Now, Theo, can you see the worksheets okay?
See the worksheets indeed, Yvonne, yeah. Group 1, Group 2.
Fine, thank you. So the worksheets are an additional feature that are in each lesson. And again, you can download these and you will see that they are exactly like the pupils' books. And I'm going to show you at the end of this session how you can use some of these pages as a collaborative task on your platform, or even just as revision or intervention for some children who need it. Some of them get more complex as we move through, just like Wickles books. So you're having that positive reinforcement and consolidation all the way through. It's so easily mapped out for you. Additionally, on this page, what you can see is how the apps work on all the different platforms. Now, I'm going to go into the class part, my class, but remember, you can have as many classes as you like on this page, and you can also assign it to teachers. The one thing we don't do at the moment is have individual names, and that is something that will come along in the future. But what you can do is see how each class is progressing so that you're monitoring, and also that you know that you're more or less at the same stage with your other classes who may be within the same age group. So Theo, just let me know if you can't see anything as I'm talking about.
It's all good. I think we're good now, but just in case anything.
Perfect. That's what we want. We want to be all good. And now it's working really well. So as you can see here, we have the steps again, but they're broken down now into lessons and groups. So when I showed you the activities before, what you did see was at a glance. And now we're fine tuning it a little bit now. And you can see how we're going from step 1 and then step 2, where we are building up the skills, the 5 key skills, and then we're going into step 3 and we're going into the progression of the program. Now, what you will notice from group 1 to group 7 is very clearly mapped out, but also you can see in each corner here is a little tick, and that indicates that my lesson has been done. But the good thing is that you can keep going back to things if you need to for revision, or if a child needs intervention. It's one of those programs that you can use over and over again, the different aspects of it. A question we often get asked is there a set time for each stage to be done? The brilliant thing about Jolly Phonics is it's totally adaptable to your curriculum, your English class, and also how you want to plan. So you can be as flexible as you like using the digital resource along with your paper-based ones in the classroom, and it can be supported in any way you want, as a revision, as a reinforcement, and also, again, as I mentioned, you can use it on a tablet for intervention with children. So I'm going to start at the very first lesson, go into S, because this is where you would start. But what I want to do is to give you a breakdown of how the lesson goes together. And then as we move through the session, you'll see how it advances. So we have a great opening page. I'm going to click on the lozenge and we're straight into the story. I'm not going to spend too much about how you can do a story and things like that, because you're probably used to doing that in class with your paper-based resources. But if you are new to Jolly Phonics, we have this question mark on every single page. Jolly Classroom has all the information that is similar to the teacher's book from Jolly Phonics. So if you are not 100% sure, or you would like to plan before your class, you can press on the question mark and you have all your teacher's notes. Again, what it will do is tell you exactly how you can introduce your lesson, what you need to do, and also some tips for additional activities. The one good thing about the lesson and the story here is that you've got the text, And also we have the sound. I'm not going to play the sound right now, but you can see that you can ad-lib or amend the story to fit the level of your children. But the one great thing about the tools on here is that we have a wonderful spyglass. And the spyglass enables you to focus into sounds. Now remember, we're starting with S. So I may want to look at snake. I'll go up to sun. I may want to zone in. Look at this. I may want to just zone in so that children are having a real focus on the sound and also some vocabulary, making connections with the visual cues. I've got 6, I've got sick. And look here, I can zone out. And I can also go back to this story and use it for other things. I can use it for colors, emotions, how do you feel, the weather. So these resources can be used in many different ways. But at the moment, we're just looking at the story and how you can use it. And children love the story. And also having the spyglass makes it a completely different approach to how we're looking at language, phonics, and also how children can get vocabulary. Now I'm going to just drop down on this menu for you to see. And as this is the first lesson, I'm going to go through what you could possibly do. A question I get asked is, do I do this all on the same day? This is where you can actually pace the lesson to how you want it to fit with your ages of the children and also your learning concepts, your learning desires for that day. What do you want to do within your class? So you can look at all of these. And also the great thing is that you can go backwards and forwards. I would not recommend you jump out of sequence because these are all being done for children to reinforce as they move along. But once you've done all of these, you can go back. As you saw on that first at a glance menu, you can revise all the sounds. We'll look at that a bit later about how you can go back into it and revise anything that you want to. So we have our story. As I mentioned, it has the sound. You can get rid of the text. You can tune in. We remember how to do the action because remember, we're looking at the 5 skills. Also, we want children to do the action. We want to do air letters. We want them to remember the action because the next part of the lesson as we move on is formation. Now, for some children, this is a real task of hand-to-eye coordination, but also they need lots of practice with pencil grip. Now, using the digital resource, they can use a stylus or even their finger. But what we are helping them to do is actually get the formation correct, which is what we want. If they hear the sound, we want them also to know how to do the grapheme. But look at this. If I wanted to, I could ask the children to come up and do rainbow letters. And we love rainbow letters. And it's something we can go back and do over and over again. So here I am. I'm attempting my and it's not bad. So I might ask another child to come up and we can pick another color, maybe the blue, and we can try again. Oh, this one might be a little bit wobbly because I'm not quite good yet, but then I can refresh and I can have a look. Let's get rid of the color and I can see how close was I. I can actually use this as a tool to help me get my. But then we have another little activity to do with letter formation. And this is all about pushing. We're pushing the cursor along to help do the letter formation. So although we're still doing the same task, we're using a different skill. So again, children are using their knowledge of letter sound, letter shape, handwriting, and it's all coming together in a beautiful visual way, which is extremely engaging. If I look down at the menu now, I'm going to move on to some gamification, and it's really important that children engage with something that's going to keep them motivated, but also they're learning as well. And one of the great things about the program is the visual cues that we have in there that are not only supporting children's language acquisition, but also helping them, in this case, with the initial sound. So again, if I wasn't entirely sure of the vocabulary as a teacher, I can have a look at my teaching notes, and that would help me to understand the next 3 pages and also the vocabulary that I need. So that's really helpful and extremely clear. So I would go through these with the children, and they're making that amazing connection with what I see and what I hear. And that's reversible, as we know, as they move on. But yes, we can do sun, we have stick, we have sock, and we have dog. So again, you play with this. The children are hearing the sounds, they're seeing the grapheme, and they're making that connection with what they hear and what they see, and they spot the odd one out. So we have three chances to do this, and you can shuffle them around. What a great way to end the song, or end the lesson rather, with a song, so that we revise the song again. And then at the very end of this very first lesson, we have the worksheet. Now, I've whisked you through the first lesson, but clearly, as you can see, you can go through at your own pace, but also you can go back. And when you start a lesson, how wonderful it is, even with the first sound, that you can pop back, revise, get children engaged when they're sitting on the carpet or they're sitting in class, and get them started. The wonderful thing also about the program is how it works so well with the pupils' books, the decodable readers, and all the other resources that we have in Jolly Phonics. Now I'm going to shuffle along a little bit to kind of group 3, just so that you can see the progression. I go back in to start the lesson again, but I'm not going to go through some of the things that we've already seen, because you're familiar with those. But what we are adding to as we progress with each letter sound and with each group is, besides the formation, I'm going to move on to the next one. There we go. The next activity is we're introducing blending. Now, this is an extremely important skill for children, and one that they need a lot of practice with. They need to practice not only recognizing the letter shapes, but also the sounds. And here we're looking at the short vowel sound in the middle as well. But we're following the same routine that we have with Jolly Phonics, which is with the sound dots. So important. You have the option here to have the sound on or off. And again, you can toggle with this, because if you want to go back and revise, or you want to introduce it into the lesson, you may want to use different skills as well, such as how many sounds, before you actually start this, how many sounds can you hear with the word per egg, using the fingers, using the robot arm. We can use lots of multi-sensory ways before we actually go on to this part of the lesson. And if we do it here, you probably won't be able to hear it, but what you can see is how each letter is highlighted. So children are sounding these out as they blend them along. It's very visual, and it's very appealing to children. If we're working in with small children, we don't know their emerging learning styles, this is a great way to address all the different ways children are learning, what they hear and what they see. You also have the opportunity, after we've done some blending, and there's a lot of blending, and it's easily paced. It's one of these things that we can do in a fun way as well. It doesn't always have to be on screen, and that's the beauty of having the digital resource and also having phonics in your class with the paper-based one. Segmenting, again, another essential skill. And again, here you won't be able to hear what it's saying, but it's asking me for the word gap. Now remember, I'm only on my 3rd group. I'm still practicing. I'm going along really, really well, but children need to be able to know how all of these CVCs, how the sounds go together. So the more practice, and I'm using my fingers, or even the teacher is doing it for me, but what do I put first? A G. Is this the G? Is this the G? Or is that a G? I'd get the children to help me. If we decide that this is going to be it, yeah, I've done it. It's a G. So what was the word again? The word was, I'd ask the class, can you remember the word? What was the word? Gap. It's gap. Okay, I know how to do gap. Does that sound right? Does that look right? I'd get the class to say, but is that gap? There's something wrong here. That doesn't seem right. That's an E. We need an A. We need an A. So as you can see here, it immediately turns green. So even if the child is working by themselves, it's self-correcting, which is huge for a small child to be able to know. Now, you may say, well, this would be kind of like memory skill, or if they do it over enough, they probably aren't. Yes, they are learning because they're making a connection with what they hear, what they see, and the whole physicalness of moving it around. They are learning how to blend and segment. So it's an important skill that transposes to paper when they're ready to write. So using these games, using these opportunities to do things together, is also a help for you as a teacher to be able to see who's struggling a bit here. Well, I'm watching you all in class, who's struggling a little bit. I might need to go back and revise a few things. So it's a great opportunity for you, the teacher, to have a look at how children are responding. And of course, we have the great games again. You have the teacher's notes, should you need them, odd one out. Children are getting very, very familiar with what they can hear, what they can see, and making associations. But then we move on to something a little bit more challenging. And this is challenging because children now have a visual cue, and they also have a CVC word. So they are putting those skills together of blending and segmenting, and also deciding what picture does it go through. And remember, some children may not have that vocabulary, so it's a huge moment for them as well to learn a new word. So we kind of might know that this is an egg. We might know that this is an egg in English, egg, because of course I'm thinking about teachers who are working in English as a second language, and so egg. So that would go. Now I might think, I'm not sure what what is a grin is. Let's have a look. Does it go there? No, it doesn't go there. So I know that this fits in there. Yay, it fits in there. That's fantastic. But and it's an opportunity for me as a teacher to say, it's a great, big, beautiful smile. Let me see you do those beautiful grins. And they've learned another word for a smile, which is grin. And then this pops in here for dig. And I'd get them all to start digging in the classroom. Again, it's a way. And at the bottom here, you can see as we're progressing along with the lesson and also the activity that we're doing. And again, we go into the song and also the download. So we're expanding and we're expanding all the time with our lessons. I'm moving on quickly now so that we can go and have a look at one of the sounds in the last group, just so that you can see the expansion of the lesson plan, and also just how much children are doing within their first step. So as you can see here, very familiar now, you're looking at all of these, but we also have flashcards to revise. Now, the good thing about the revision of the flashcards is you get the choice to have a look at doing the first three groups, 3 to 7, or all 42 sounds. You can look at any of these that you wish, and you can adjust it from here. Also, as we go through, we've got familiar things like the story, the action, the formation, and now children will be doing 2 letters together, but also match sentence to pictures. And I'm going to dip into that. Well, actually, I might just pop into segmenting, because I'll go back here into blending, because you can see the progression as well as we're moving along, just so that you can see how we're progressing. And again, children are now being able to identify, look at that diagram, and also using the sound buttons. So there's a lot of practice there for them. So I'm going to go to the game, which is match the sentence. And again, we're building on the skill. And here it is reading for comprehension, you might say, because what we want children to do is start to recognize things like we've got a capital letter. We also have a full stop. You may not highlight them immediately, but what we can see is that children are beginning to notice things like that. And also we have here, as you can see in the lighter font, and this corresponds with the decodable readers, that we don't pronounce this. It's not kettle, it's kettle. And this is a great way to help with pronunciation. So if I was doing this part of my lesson, what I would be doing is making first observations about the illustrations. What can you see? What colors? I'd be getting children engaged. Because if they were saying, well, that's orange, I'd say, well, what's the first sound? Oh. Orange is a difficult word, but I'd be saying, what's the first sound? And here we have duck, or as children say, quack. And so to say duck, how many sounds in duck? So I'd get the whole thing going. But then we'd be saying the kettle is boiling, and our focus sound is oi, boiling. And I'd explain that boiling means it's hot, something really, really hot. So children would make the connection that it's not the boy. He doesn't look hot. The duck, don't think he's hot. Maybe it's the kettle, boiling. And the children then will make. Then if we move on, I'd get them to read. Then we move on. We notice that the kettle is in the next activity. So the children will know that this is not a coin. I had a coin. And we could talk about what a coin means. So thinking about children who have English as a second language, we can explain that a coin is something you can buy something with. With a coin, I can buy a present. And you're helping them develop strategies on how they can identify what the visual is connected with the word. So children are reading, there's comprehension, and also this fits in really well with some of the activities in the pupils book. So as you can see, when we get to step 3, we're moving on to some more games. I'm not going to spend too long on these because I'm not really good. I'm not good with pairs, but children, yay, I've got one. Children are super clever, but you can reset it so it's always different, so it doesn't become a memory game. But what happens is children are listening, but also they're making that connection to the visual. And also it's an opportunity for me to say, how many sounds? Quickly, how many sounds? 3. Can you do it on your arm? Yak, yes. What's the first sound? Yeah. What's the last sound? K. What's in the middle? What's the short vowel sound? Ah. So I'd be using the same game, but I put it in different ways so that they never really know what I'm going to bring to my lesson. So moving on, as you can see now, we have tricky word revision, and this is important because as we get down to group 6, this is group 7, tricky words are introduced. Children need lots of visuals and revisions for this because essentially they're sight words. Our tricky words are here to trick us. So we will revise the tricky words, and then also we'll move on to introducing some new ones. Again, it's at a lovely pace where the children are seeing a very clear visual and being able to read the tricky word. Again, great way to revise. And also when we introduce a new one, you can explain, why is it tricky? It's be, like he or she or me. It's tricking us because it's not bear, it's be, like e. It's a tricky word. And you can use whatever strategies you have in place for describing what a tricky word is. They're meant to trick us. We finish this and we can then move on to step 2. So as you can see, step 1 is pretty fluid. There's a lot of things that are the same there that you can repeat. And additionally, it gives you that solid foundation of children learning about what a grapheme is, the shape, and also what the letter sound is. So it's a great way to get that in place before we move on to other concepts. And as we move on to step 2, it also helps us, the authors have been very clever here, it also helps us in that as we move forward, they're always revising what they've done in step 1. It's like a spiral. As they move up, they're always touching the elements that they have done before. And we're going to have a little sneaky peek on Unit 1. And as you can see, very clear on what the objectives are within this lesson. We're going to be looking at Y as E. We've got capital letters. We've got some tricky words. And also we have some words and sentences. So I'm just going to briefly dip into day 1. Now, it says day 1, but as I mentioned about your planning, if you can only do English 3 times a week, or you're constrained by the times, then you use that schedule of day 1 or day 2 to suit your planning. You could call it class 1 or class 2. So don't worry about that. That's one of the things that comes through, that teachers worry that if they don't have a daily class, how do I fit it in? You adjust it to fit your timetable. And again, here we have the options that we can change the flashcards, and you'll see that it's a shorter menu because we're really getting children just to revise and practice and keep those skills going. If I go into the other part of this lesson, I'm going to go back so that you can see here that I have some options for other things. So I'm just going to dip into 1 or 2 of those. And I think we'll have a look at words and sentences, because some of the other elements, whether you're very familiar with phonics, Jolly Phonics or not, are ones that you may be generally familiar with, having looked at step 1, such as handwriting and tricky words. And that when we move on from group 4, we go into the we go into the diagraphs, and then in this stage, we go into the alternatives. But look at this great visual. And children love visuals. They love to be able to talk about what they can see. And here we ask children to get engaged by talking about what you can see. I can see a chick. I can see is it a chicken or a hen? So have a look at your teacher's notes to make sure exactly what we are looking at. It's a hen. I want to make sure it's a hen, because that's decodable. Hen. I also can see a mouse. I could talk about colors, but the one thing I want to do is get children to talk about what they can see. Now, this may be the end of your lesson. You may think, well, I'm just going to use this. We're going to talk about it. We're going to get children to use some of the examples that are on here, like I can see, there is, there are. Children are developing structures, grammatical structures, but we're not even explicitly teaching that. They're responding to questions. So how many chicks can you see? I can see 3 chicks. I can see a hen. There is a spider. There are eggs. So we're generating a conversation, and you'll see why I'm really talking about this in a minute, because we move on to another activity where we have the visual cues. And again, this is a lovely one for children to consolidate. Look at some of the things that we've been looking at from that visual. Some of these I know that that's an egg, but should we just check how we spell that? Is it 1 egg or 2 eggs, or it's eggs? Okay, I've had a quick look. I'm going to attempt to write this. So I think I can do this. Eggs. There we go. Whoops. There. Yay, I've done it. Am I right? Yeah. Now I know this. Miss, I know it. I can do it. I know this. I'm going to write it. Are you sure you don't want to have a look? No. I can do it. And hey, look at that. I've done it. It's a nest. You're right. Yes, it's a nest. I know it's a nest. It's a nest. But you can go back and correct that. Let's go back and correct it. So children have the opportunity to check, and they can rub out, and they can correct themselves. And again, it becomes a learning activity. Look at that. I've checked, I've looked, and I've got the visual cue. Again, if you can imagine, this is a great way for children to put the key skills in of writing, they're identifying, they're using the short vowels before we move on to the long vowels. And then you will have a look here. You'll see why I had that picture about how we can talk about the visual that we can see. So before I do this, very, very briefly, I might pop in to talk about the picture, remind children of exactly what we were looking at, get them to reutilize that vocabulary, and then we'd go straight into the guided writing. And I'm going to do this a bit later on, so I'm not going to talk about it too much right now. But as you can see, how we can flip back and go forward, and children are ready for this part of the lesson. And so having all that information, those words and everything, we can do a glossary, and get the children to talk about again what they can see. We have a suggestion for writing here, and we also have a dictation. This could be one final part of your lesson, or you could spread it over several lessons, depending how you are pacing your class. And again, this is one of the beauties of using the program, is that you can pace it to fit what your children need. And we finish off with a worksheet. And again, I'm going to show you how. I'm going to let you just have a quick look at this worksheet, because sometimes teachers are confused how to use these 4 images in a progressive way, and I'll share that with you later. So I'm going to save my progress because I want it there for my class. And I'm just checking how we're doing for time. Brilliant. Is have a look at the next step. Now, as you can see, just briefly glancing at this landing page, you can flip backwards and forwards as much as you need to. And equally, when we get down to step 3, as you can see, it is building on children's skills. We are amplifying, but also, as I mentioned, we're able to revise a lot of those concepts that they may have done several months before. Small children, when they come back from the holiday period, or also having vacations like the winter break or the summer break, they need to have revision, and Jolly Classroom is excellent for dipping straight in. With the gamification, also, it's so clear and it's engaging. Children are immediately remembering what they've done in a fun and also a multi-sensory way. So I'm going to pop into the very last unit in step 3, because I'm hoping what you can see is how this progression, which is helping you, the teacher, with your teaching notes. And also, don't forget, you have the teacher's book for Jolly Phonics, which is 3 years of teaching, that you can also use as a roadmap to help you with the contents of Jolly Classroom. Although you have the teaching notes here, in the teacher's book, it's more amplified. And also you have a great introduction done by the authors to support the methodology of the program. Again, you can see it's very clear, but what you might notice here is that we are going into the alternatives. Just going to dip into the alternatives because that's something we haven't looked at. And as you can see here, we go straight into the or sound. Remember, children have learned about e-or, and now we're looking at the alternative spellings that go with that sound. And they're pretty secure with that e-or, the or, like in fork, they're pretty secure with that. Now we can safely move on to the next step, which is the alternative sounds. We're giving them an opportunity to look and see how there is in a word, and also a visual. So we have or, as in saw, and we have a saw. Again, this may be where you need to just practice a little bit more. These are concepts that some children get very quickly. We have the or as in autumn. And again, you can see we're using the light font so children know it's not autumn. And the sound buttons to help with the visual cue. And we have the sound as well. So this is what the children originally learned with the or, and they're making the connections not only with the visual cues, but also words as well. And we can reset this so that we can start again. If we look down at the menu, the blending flashcards, again here, they're extremely important for children because they're again using all that knowledge, but we're a little bit more advanced now. And you can imagine how children move on with this skill. It's absolutely amazing. So having these as visual cues, but also putting them into practice if you're using the downloads or the pupils book, means that it's a wraparound approach that children will successfully be writing and also reading. And as we move on here, jigsaws, a little bit of gamification, but you can see it's a little bit more advanced because children have that skill now. And getting back to the worksheets. So if I pop back to the main menu, I'm not going to save this because I don't want to, because my children haven't got there yet. I'm also going to look at the words and sentences. And again, what we can see here is we're talking about the picture, but also children get the opportunity to really use their skills in being able to decipher what the picture is. So this is a picnic, a pick, and put in the missing grapheme sound. So as you can see here, if I put the j sound in, pick jick, no, that's not right. Pick nick. Look what happens to the word. It goes green. So the children then know, if they can self-correct, but also they can know they've chosen the right sound to go in that word. Again, we don't want to use it as a guessing game kind of task or a memory task. I could actually get the children to do this, blend this on their arm, how many sounds, get them to talk about a picnic so that it actually matches what the picture is, making it personal, but also getting them refresh so that we can do the game again so that it doesn't become just a memory skill. Put them into a sentence. Picnic, if we have the word picnic, who likes picnics? I like picnics. What do you have in your picnic? I like to have sandwiches. Remember the story about the picnic. Remember ants at my arm. I'll be making connections all the way along. But also, I want children to take the word and put it in a sentence and hear how they're using that vocabulary. If we quickly move on, because I'm aware of the time, we have guided writing, which I'm going to talk to you about in a moment, and also the worksheets. Before I come out of this, I'm going to go back into the activities page and just let you see now how once you've gone through all your classes, how easy it is to dip in and out on each step or go right back. I could be in step 3, but you know what? I might want to look at the actions, and I might want to revise some of these actions with some of the children. I might be working with a group of children who need intervention. So I want to just go through some of the actions with them, make sure they're secure, that they're understanding what the grapheme is, and also they can do the actions. So as you can see, this is a really good way to be able to, at a glance, get to where I want to be, but also be able to revise certain aspects within the program very easily. Maybe I want to do some more work with match the words to the picture, or as we're moving on, perhaps I want to just do some more tricky words, or also just alternative spellings. So again, it's easy to navigate and easy to fit round what your class needs at a particular time when you need it. You may decide to come out of a lesson and focus on something because the children just aren't getting those tricky words. Maybe you want to go back and just revise those before you move on. And that is the beauty and the flexibility of having this program for your teaching as part of your teaching toolkit. So I'm going to come out of this now because, as promised, I want to show you how we can highlight going into a reading and writing activity and expand on that, because that is usually one of the questions I get asked a lot. What can I do with that? So Theo, are we okay now? Can you see me? Yep. Right. So this is, again, you're looking at the at a glance menu, but I'm going to go into doing some reading and writing. So here we are. So what you can see here again is the opportunity to have a look, and I'm going to go for words and sentences. Now I'm just going to pause my video a moment, and you can see we can talk about the picture. There's so much to talk about in this illustration, and children love it. It's nighttime. I can see the moon. What can I see? There's eyes. You know, there's always some eyes. What are they? And children could be guessing. It could be, it could be a monster. It could be a little animal. So we're talking about the picture, generating knowledge. And like I said, this is a big moon. What does it start with? Get the action. Also, do your arm. How many sounds in moon? So you can see how we can get going and get started. So as the video moves on, we have the buttons down the side so that we can hear the asking question. I can see a bat. I can see a moon. So the children again are being able to use these,
I can see an owl.
Examples. There we go. There we go. So I can say, what else can you see? I can see a bat. I can see a tree. So they're using that model to help. Again, we can go on the other
The
tab,
bat is flying.
and it will play. So the bat is flying. So again, I might say to the children, the bat is flying. What is the owl doing? The owl is looking. What is the moth doing? The moth is hiding. So you can explain what these are. I mean, somebody said, you know, what explanation do we give for the eyes? Because children are, they can be whatever you want them to be. And that's the beauty about having these in the pictures, is that children can use their imagination. What do you think those eyes could be? What could it be? And they're all different. And it's lovely that children can use their imagination. So this is our talk
The
about.
moon shines in the dark.
The moon shines in the dark. You see, each one that goes along, each sentence is actually expanding. So I'm also going to use the telescope here to tune in so that children can look at specific illustrations, and we can be talking about colors. For example, I could say, I can see flowers. What color are the flowers? They're blue. So I could say, I could see blue flowers. I'll actually ask children to expand on a sentence or tell me what they can see. And I can see those eyes again. What do you think it is? And again, it's a way to keep children engaged if you're going back to this activity before we actually go to the writing. So we've done this, we've explored a lot of vocabulary, and I want to move on now. And as I move on to the next part, which should be coming up shortly, we'll revise all of these like you saw.
Moth.
And again, the one thing that you will, a moth is, I've deliberately picked this because children tend to think it's a butterfly and get very confused. So we have moth, which is an easier word to do. And as you can hear now, it's constantly helping children, not only with the audio, but also the visual. So I did touch on this a little bit about how we are getting children generating their understanding of vocabulary. But also remember, at some point, children are going to take this information and pass it onto a piece of paper. So this is where we're leading up to. And here we have the opportunity to put all those words that we took from the talk about the picture and put them up here. I might ask the child to come up. I might scribe for my class, depending the ability and the time I have. So I've got a few words here so that children are reminded, but also what are they doing? They are reading. They are reading. So these are some of the words that they have picked, but also we can now start to use those in some of the sentences that we have.
The moth is on
having
the
the
tree.
Glossary here, the help words, and we have a sample sentence. The moth is on the tree. Now I may ask a child to come up and write that, or
the
I
moth
could say,
is on the tree.
What do you think? All right, we have the moth is on the tree. Can you give me a sentence? Maybe you can think of a better sentence. So I'd ask the children to come up with a different sentence, something that they might enjoy. And if they do want to come up with a different sentence, then I think go ahead. Let's try and put that up there on the smartboard. I would really love it if a child came up and gave their all to try and put this up here, because what are they doing? They're using all those skills that have been in all those steps. They're blending, they're segmenting, they're using their handwriting skills, and also it's making sense because they have the visual cue to prompt them. They also have the glossary here on the side. And look at this. If this had been a child and they remembered to put a capital letter and a full stop, I would be extremely happy. And again, you can ask the children, you know, the moth is small. And I would say, you know, can we make that a better sentence? We could say the brown moth is small. And yes, capital letters. Can we choose to use only capital letters? But what we are doing within the program is a mixture of starting the children off with lowercase letters, and then they move on to capital letters, because then they realize that as they go on to the grammar, that we use capital letters for cities, names, and they need to know where to use capital letters. So I wouldn't say do it all in capital letters. Also here, now this could also be another lesson. It might be too much to do the dictations all in one lesson. In this one alone, just think about within your class exactly what have I done in this lesson. You have
The
done
moon
so many
is big.
things, and it's okay.
There
We
are
need to start again. I'm going to just pause it a little bit. What I would say is that look at how you are using this lesson and what you are getting from it, because you can go back and use it again for a different skill. Think about the skills we have been using here now. What we have been doing is writing, the handwriting, the blending, the segmenting. Children are remembering how the sounds go together to make a word. So it's very, very interesting in how we can take these and use them in different ways. We could go back to this page and come up with different words. And
some
as I
trees.
paused here, this is the
Bats can
last
be
one.
black.
So the dictation sentences, again, are also helping with children revising what they learned in that their first step. Dictation is really important because children are putting what they are practicing into a format. It's the same with reading. They're getting all this knowledge and we want them to be able to use it. So the dictation sentences are really important and also extremely useful. And we can finish off now. We've done the dictation. I could have 2 or 3 lessons using this page. And now we have the download. And again, I want to show you how you can use the download in an effective way to help with children. Because here you have 4 on 1 page. So if we go to the next video, I'll be able to break it down for you to show you how you can use this one resource in many different ways. So using the downloads. Again, we've got the ones that we have in step 1, which are quite straightforward. But again, there's quite a lot of things you can do with those downloads. Not only are we reinforcing the letter sound, the letter shape, we could do coloring, but also the action. It can also help in many ways for revision for children who need it. So I've downloaded and printed off my worksheet and I have 4 pictures. But what I am doing is using these visual cues to help me to generate sentences. I may do it as a collective task within the class because we are starting our reading and writing. We're starting our writing. But what I would do is get the children to come up on the board and help scribe some of the CVC words. But here we are using the visuals in a proactive way. And as you can see, the sentences are all different. And I may have got those from the class. We could have done it as a complete activity. And the children have then putting those in their notebooks. Maybe you don't have to print off. You just need to have the visual on the board so that they can see and make connections to what we're doing. So this is one way, and as you can see, I've done it as an example for a notebook. But also, as we move on, is it moving on? Is it working? Yeah, we move on. And another way that you can use this is when children's skills, for example, if I'm using the same resource with older children, maybe their abilities are greater and they can write more. So we could extend it out and do more sentences. But as you can see, they're just sentences. We're not looking at composing creative writing or anything. We're getting children to make that connection with what they see. Can I write it using my skills and putting it all in a format where you can see what they're doing? And then if we move on, another way you can use this download in another way, remember, they're not all like this. Not every download is the same. Is if you have this picture and maybe you could color it, get one of the children to color it and laminate it so it's a reusable resource over and over again. I used to put something like this on the board and say, what do you think happened before? And the children would think about, oh, you don't know what happened before. You know, why is the moth hiding? Why is the bat flying? And then I'd also then say, what do you think happened after? So the children were beginning to understand about a timeline. So this worksheet was the foundations for something like creative writing. Although we're not creative writing, the children are putting the elements together of a story. And it's done with just one visual and simple things like this with an arrow to help with that strategy. Also, if we move on, my favorite, as you can see here, it's a vocabulary harvest. So looking at that last slide, what you saw was how that one page was able to be used for me to put the words around, and children could draw that. And as you can see, it all comes together for them to have a visual cue, like a visual dictionary of all the things that they've done in that lesson. So as you can see, it really is quite a dynamic program that offers a lot. If we swing the pendulum backwards and forwards to children who are quite young, to those that are a little bit older, it covers whatever you need within your class, and you can do as much or as little as you need within your lesson to facilitate the age groups, but also the abilities as well. And I am also thinking about children who have English as a second language. Talking about the accessibility, you can have a look on the Jolly Classroom website, and you can try the product for 14 days for free. As mentioned right at the beginning of the session, there are no certificates for this trial, because what we were doing, we're talking you through a lesson and giving you some ideas of how you can use this. And I'm not going into practicing handwriting or the other questions today, because we are focusing just on Jolly Classroom at the moment. Now, Jolly Classroom is a wonderful resource to use within a group environment, but it can equally be used very successfully on a one-to-one, and gives children a great opportunity to revise a lot of concepts in a different way. But equally, if you are using the Jolly Phonics program with the pupils' books and the rest of the resource, this is a great way to bring that digital literacy into your classroom as well. So we have some questions here. Can you explain the difference between the handbook and the teacher's book? Yeah, the teacher's book, which is an excellent resource, please have a look on the website to have a look, is a great way for you to have 3 years of teaching and lesson plans. And again, it gives you a structure on how to deliver that lesson. And also, if you are not too familiar with the program, you have lots of advice on how you start the class, the aim of the teaching, and additionally extra activities that you can do as well. The handbook has a great introduction by the authors, which gives you a very full background on the whole program, but then it's full of photocopyable masters to support your class. So the teacher's book is a lesson-driven, it has lesson plans and will support your teaching and planning, I have to say. It's absolutely brilliant if you are doing planning. And the handbook is more of a photocopyable resource that follows the program and supports that in your class. So we've got lots of questions.
So many great questions, and most of the questions I'm just looking through them. They're actually about the program. They're not about the software. There are some about the software. One of them is about Jolly Classroom, the software features. How do we access the Spyglass? So it's worth maybe noting that there are a few. There's a little kind of tool selection.
Yeah, at the top of each page, you'll see that there is a rectangle which gives you a toolbar. And in that toolbar, you have a pencil, a felt tip pen, you have a rubber and different colors that you can use, and also the Spyglass.
Maybe we can share the screen and demonstrate.
At the top here, where we have our toolbar. And we have the last one here is the icon. And it really is good because we can go out. But I love the fact that we can go in. And there are those eyes again. Look. Wow, I'm going to go right in. What are they? What is it? So it's great. You can ask the kids. And also, if I just want to do focus, I mean, if I was in the classroom, I'd be saying, what colors can you see? and be saying red and black, or maybe it's an opportunity if they do speak to you and it comes back in the native language, you reinforce that by saying, you're right, it is red and it is black, because the children may not know what that word is in English, but if they say it to you in their mother tongue, you reinforce that with English and say, you're right, because they are right, they just don't know the word yet. But as you can see, this is a great way for I spy. You know, I spy. How many flowers? What sound does a bee make? I could say, is the boy happy or sad? How many legs does a dog have? Look at snake. So I can ask lots of questions and children can be very interactive with it. So it's a great tool to have. And it's one of the favorites within the program. So I hope that you have enjoyed this. And someone says, can we take courses? Well, you know, the good thing about Jolly Learning is that we're always having these wonderful sessions. And if you let us know what you want, we can then facilitate that with more in-depth and also looking at how the products can work for you in your environment. But yeah, we're always looking at ways to support your development in the classroom using the resource, and also like to hear from you on how you are using the product. So again, we're learning. So thank you. Well, thank you very much.
One more question.
Lovely to read. Yeah, another question.
Yes, we actually have many questions, but maybe if we have some time, this could be relevant to a few people. Vanessa's asking, hello, I'm new to using and learning about phonics. So can you recommend me which of the Jolly Phonics books might be a good start for me to learn more about teaching phonics, how to use them with students, but not digitally? So this would be a printed resource.
But one of the good things is there's also an online course, a CPD course, where you can do Jolly Phonics and Jolly Grammar. Now, both of these courses are self-paced and on demand, and they can go through every structure that you need to know about using the Jolly Phonics program and also teaching. You heard me mention about the teacher's book, which is a wonderful at a glance how to use, but equally it has that fantastic introduction, which is the same with the handbook done by the authors to actually help you go through how the method works, and it's paced in a way that's easy to understand. But you know, the best thing to do is actually start using the resources, start using them, using the handbook or the teacher's book and getting them in the classroom and feeling how they work and your pace and how you do them. The one thing I would say is don't rush, and also don't mix up the groups of sounds. They're in a specific order for a specific reason, and that is aligned with all the teaching resources. So there's quite a lot out there to help you with Jolly Phonics, but the courses online are pretty good as well.
I just popped a link into the chat. If you press on that link, you'll be taken to the training section of our website about the courses. So please feel free to explore that section.
Yeah, and also, you know, we have so many global trainers, and they are often having online and face-to-face training sessions. So find out who your local trainer is, and maybe they can let you know with the next training session. And again, the wonderful thing about the trainers that we have is that they all use the product, and they've used it in a variety of ways and different settings and age groups. So they can help you with any of your queries.
Next question. Is it possible to share the activities as an extension of learning at home without necessarily sharing the username and password? So I guess using Jolly Classroom as a remote learning tool, I think that's...
that might be a little bit difficult if you don't want them to have your user name and also your email. However, there is the free Jolly Classroom app that you can use to help support children at home. But additionally, no, there's no safeguard. And that would be the same with a lot of programs, to be honest. A lot of digital programs would have that same issue, that giving it to a child may be a little bit difficult. Yeah, so not yet, no.
Yvonne, would you be able to recommend a book to practice handwriting?
We have our own books that will be coming out shortly, so please just wait. We have another wonderful resource that will be coming out towards the end of the year, and these are our Jolly Phonics handwriting books, which support the program and are linked directly to what the children are doing. So just wait a little bit longer because they're coming out pretty soon. That's what I'd recommend.
Another good question. Do we have to use the app together with the books? So for example, the 3 pupil books, or can the app be used, app as in Jolly Classroom, can it be used separately?
Yes, it can be. One of the good features is that it can be used independently. And again, you have all the information about how to do this actually on that question mark. And on your landing page, it has all the information. What we like to recommend is that if you're using the digital resource, we do want children to develop their skills also using books, handwriting, and practicing what they're doing. Because for many of us, it would be easy just to do digital and not practice the skills that we're asking children to do, like with handwriting. So we try and have this multi-sensory approach where we can be using at least some elements of the writing, blending, and segmenting with multi-sensory activities that support the digital. But you don't necessarily have to have the pupils' books because you have the downloads. But ideally, it'd be nice to complement one with the other to make sure that it's a complete program and a complete approach. Okay, so
probably we have time for just a few more questions, if that's okay, Yvonne. When we Maya's asking, when we ask them to write about a picture, they should write between the lines of the, I guess this is about step 2 and 3, or if they can focus on 2 objectives.
Okay, well, the handwriting that we like children to write on the line, and again, many countries have their own approaches to how they do writing, because some countries don't start writing till they're about 6 years old. But ideally, we like children to start on the line and continue across rather than kind of like mid-air. And it takes practice. Children need to practice to become proficient writers. They need to practice the skill of making the letter shapes. And this is where we go back to that multi-sensory approach of sandboxes or doing the Play-Doh. But with writing, we can't force it too early because children don't have the fine motor skills. However, the digital resource means that they're using the finger, so they are developing some fine motor skills as well. But handwriting, keep it short, keep it simple, but make sure they're practicing all the skills that we've laid down here today in the sample lesson. And some people have mentioned about the readers. The Jolly Classroom does not have the decodable readers. They may have 1 or 2 examples like Moat Farm, because we want children to actually pick up a book. We want children to put all that knowledge that they have into practice by reading a book, holding a book, because there is nothing better to help children understand the flow of the pages, the direction of the print, by actually holding the book. So there are no digital copies of the book on Jolly Classroom.
And I think it's just to round off the session, I think it would be worth mentioning that Jolly Classroom may be used on an unlimited number of devices per school. It will be possible to, it is possible to create multiple teacher and class profiles, and be used simultaneously in all your classes. Yeah.
And the good thing about having this where your teachers can see the progress that's going on in other classrooms is that, as a teacher myself, I remember this, is that you don't want to rush too far ahead of your other classes so that you're all reaching the same point at a similar time, more or less. And another great thing is that using Jolly Classroom is it does help along with the pupils' books, but with Jolly Classroom, it does help with the children who may find reading and writing a struggle. It invites them in a different way to participate, and we've got to remember that. Okay, so this is really good that we're having such great questions, and there are questions about the voucher code and things like it's fairly explanatory how to get your free trial if you look on the page. And what I think is a good idea is once we finish the session, go along and have a look. Go and have a look and get on the free trial and play around with it, because that's the best way you're going to learn about how to use it and how great it is. Just like we say to children, go and play with it and you learn so much. So please do. And let us know what else you'd like to hear about from Jolly Learning.
Definitely.
Theodore, yeah, he's our excellent guy at organizing all of this.
Unfortunately, we didn't.
But we can't do it without your input. So let us know.
Unfortunately, we didn't have time to answer all the questions we saw in the chat. So
No.
please feel free to pop them into our social media channels. Maybe we'll do our best to answer all the questions, and we will look forward to seeing you at our future sessions. Thank you very much for attending.
And as always, and as always, it's such a pleasure to share with you. Thank you
very much, Yvonne.
So I hope, and I thank you, Phil, and I hope it's all been a great session for you to inform. Thank you so much. Everyone's given lovely. Thank you very much. So yeah, lovely.